all right? When you're done, you do not have to reset this furniture back to where it was when you came in the room. You can leave it in whatever arrangement you had, okay? The only exception to that would be is if you emptied this room to do a mock-up. When your mock-up was done, we would ask that you would bring the furniture back in the room. It just doesn't have to be set up in any fancy way, okay? So that's really the biggest takeaway in comments I wanted to make on the furniture front. Music. We've had a few sessions in here over the last 4 weeks since the room was completed, and in quite a few of those, we used the Surface Hubs and brought up background music and or a fireplace to be playing on one of the screens. It was something that was very small in nature, but we found accentuated the experience that the teams were having in here. And while you might think the soft music could be potentially a distraction, it really wasn't. It was going on in the background. If anything, there were just positive comments about how nice it was to have that kind of soft music playing in the background. So if you're interested in doing that in any of your sessions, and as a part of your scavenger hunt activity, you guys will experience doing this, all you need to do on a Surface Hub is just go to YouTube using the browser and search whatever you want to play in the background, whether it's a fireplace, whether it's soft music. YouTube has all kinds of clips that are on loops for hours and hours and hours. You simply start one, adjust the volume, and you can leave the screen in the corner of the room and it will just be playing in the background for you to be able to use. Steve already kind of teed up a lot of the goodwill in the mill, so you guys have an experience of what that's like. I don't think icebreakers are new to any of us as a part of a meeting. We just wanted to church up the name a little bit, and so that's how we came up with the goodwill in the mill. But a lot of what that can be are icebreakers that you do at the start of a meeting or an activity that you might do at the end. Okay, so some of the examples that were listed in your booklet here for what would be good ideas for a goodwill in the mill activity could be, instead of the trading card that we did, you could simply turn to the person to your left, and your requirement is simply to say something about them that you appreciate or some way that they've helped you on a project recently, okay? That would be one example. Another might be at the end of a session, just going around the room and having everybody give a one-word answer on their impressions or takeaways from the session you just held. Icebreakers in general are a great way to start any meeting with a little bit of laughter and a little bit of energy, all right? I don't think, and I mean, to say that I've been a part of hundreds of these is probably a misnomer because we did so many with the Department of Pathology, but there was never a meeting that didn't start with some laughing and some levity with whatever activity that we did. And I think that's so important when you're entering into any kind of a meeting or a collaboration session, that everyone kind of brings that down a little bit, like any guard or any stress that they might have going on, and they just relax and laugh a little bit as you're getting started. So we really want to encourage everybody to bake in some kind of goodwill in the mill activity every time you're doing a session in the space. Continuing on, there's just in general, it referenced as rules of engagement, but in reality, it's just different things we want to encourage you guys to do. So goodwill in the mill is one. Another has to do with pictures, okay? If you're hosting a session in here with a team, or if you're out in the field somewhere and you see a photo opportunity that we want to recognize in some way in the room, on the board, in the hallway, take pictures, okay? Take pictures, save them to the photo folder on your project file, and then just let us know that you have something that you want to recognize. And I'll come back to that topic here on the next page as well. But if you're in this room, take pictures of the teams you're working with doing stuff as well. We want to be able to call out and recognize those things and spread that to the other teams within the department whenever we have an opportunity to. On the feedback front, and this is going to be one of your guys' scavenger hunt activities as well, we have the digital scrolling board in the hallway, okay? The standard aspect of that board is to scroll things going on in our projects, recognize accomplishments, recognize anniversaries and birthdays, etc. However, it's also the standard place where we want you to give us feedback on the room. That feedback can be something that worked amazingly or something you discovered that you want to share broadly that we didn't talk about in training, Or it could be that you tried to do something, you followed the instructions, no one was here and it didn't work. So you did something else, okay? The instructions to follow to do that are actually quite simple. Oops, place in the book here.
Couldn't find the instructions.
It's with the picture.
Whoa!
Don't
Maybe we
drop
should have put
anything.
first PDCA, staple the booklet. Okay. So the digital hallway screen, when you approach it out there, will be on a scrolling recognitions slide, or a slideshow. To get out of that, there's a power button in the lower left corner that's outlined in the red square. When you hit that, the scrolling PowerPoint will minimize on the screen, and there's an X, which is highlighted by the other red square, that you can click to close it. Once you've done that, behind that is the whiteboard. All you need to do is take out the pencil that's directly above the power button, write your feedback, whether it's good or bad, put your name on it if you want us to follow up with you on it, and then just leave it alone, okay? I know some of you guys know how to restore it back to the scrolling screen, but what we want as we sit across the hall is that's a visual cue for us that someone used the room and had feedback. So if you just left the feedback up, we will not miss it. If it goes back to the scrolling screen, it's possible we won't see it right away, especially if there's a problem with something not working. And then I mentioned a moment ago, if you want to add something to that scrolling board to recognize a team you're working with, all you need to do is take a couple of pictures and email myself or Sarah, or both of us, a short blurb on who, what, and when, and then include the pictures. And then we'll make sure we get them incorporated, and then they'll run for the following month. Any questions so far? Yep.
I guess I have one. If we're welcoming a group here and we want their picture or something about their project in the corridor,
Yep.
can we stop the loop and just freeze it on one particular image?
Good question. We can absolutely do that. All it requires is pre-planning. So if you knew you had a team and you knew you wanted to recognize them and you had what you needed, same thing. Just email Sarah and I that picture in advance along with the information you want included, and then we will stop the scroll and just play the static, okay? It's not that it's necessarily complicated, but it's something I don't want you guys to have to worry about setting that screen up. So if you just know what you want on there and you get it to Sarah and myself, we'll make sure it's ready for you when you need it. And then we'll take it down when the session is done. That's a great question, Renee. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Room scheduling. We've talked about this anecdotally in 1462. Today is going to be your opportunity to actually touch the screen and book fake meetings on it so that everybody understands how to do it. All right? It's pictured here with a little circle around it. It's just outside this door on our left as we exit the door. There are really two methods to book this room. The easiest one is to simply email Sarah with the date, the time, and the title of the meeting and how long you need it for. She will go into the system and book it for you. The advantage of doing that is you don't have to walk down here and touch the screen, and it also will provide details on the panel as to who has the room scheduled and booked. However, others have chosen to not do that and they just want to book via the screen, and you can do that as well. And so those steps are laid out here in the next page or two. So there's probably two situations that have come up that we accounted for in here. One is that you have something going on and you want to take a team and bring them in here in the moment. We have an issue come up on a project. Let's just go sit in this room and have a conversation. We want everybody to book the room if you're using it, okay? And the main reason for that is data on the use of the room, okay? Because part of our goal is to expand and expand and expand to where we actually have a capacity problem using this room, not one where it's open more often than it's not, okay? So we really want that data. And so it's quite easy to do. If you were going to do a drop-in conversation in here, you approach the little panel, you simply click the book button, and when you do, it brings up a statement that says from now until, and you go plus or minus as long as you want the room, and then hit book, and you're done. Room is going to be blocked. It will not say your name, it just will have the room held for you, okay? That same scenario plays out as well as it relates to scheduling future meetings, okay? The only difference is that on that same panel screen, there's a little white calendar icon down at the bottom. You click that calendar icon instead of the book icon. When you click the calendar, it opens up a calendar view that you can go forward or backwards out on dates to find the date you want, and then you simply hold to select a time, drag it down for as long as you want, and then hit book again. Okay, the only difference this time is when you're scheduling a future meeting, it's going to require you to enter a passcode. Quite simply, the passcode is the room number, which is labeled above that glass door. So it's 1032. That's the password to book if you're scheduling a future meeting. When you're done with that, you'll be able to complete it and be able to move forward. Okay? And so then at that point, the room will actually be scheduled. Because I disheveled my booklet here, I need to reset. Okay. Before I transition over to Louise, any questions on the scheduling, digital boards, or any other of the softer skills we talked about? Okay. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Louise, and then he's going to walk us through kind of the most common standard practices and uses for the Service Hub.
All right. So first off, these Surface Hubs are on wheels. They have locks on the front wheels. If you try to move them and they're not moving, both front wheels lock up, so it stays in place. When you walk up to the Surface Hub, you notice the camera on the top, obviously. There's going to be a pen, or there should be a pen somewhere, either on the side, on the top. There's a little magnet that holds the pen up. The pen itself, you notice that it has a button on the side, a button on the top, and the bottom doesn't do anything. It's just a pen. Coming up to these guys, you see 3 buttons, a call button, whiteboard button, and connect button. I'll go through those in more detail. In the bottom, you have a start button, just like your Windows computer. That's where all your stuff is. Turning these guys around, you have some ports in there. So there's HDMI to connect your laptop to it. There's USB, network, power, like all that boring stuff. In the bottom of this side over here, you can't really see it, but you can feel it. There's 3 buttons in there. So one button is power, all the way on the right. The next one, it feels like one button, but it's really 2. That's your volume up and volume down. And then the last one is input. So that's like a little tiny one in the end. And input, we'll go through it. I'll show you where it can be used. So the hubs should always be powered up when you walk up to them. If by any chance they're not, or you need to move it, you need to hold the power button until you see a Windows logo, and then it will boot up and it will get to this screen here. That means it's ready for you. You don't need to power it down. So when you're done with the hub, just hit the end session button. That's going to be all the way in the bottom. Very important that you do end session. So all your passwords, all your stuff is cleared out and it gets ready for the next person. But if you do need to move it, just like your computer, don't just yank the power on. Just hold the power button down. You see this window, and to actually shut it down, just slide that image down, and it will power down like it normally would. On the start menu, you have the same options that you had in the front of the 3 apps there. You have some that we tagged in and pinned to the start menu. And under all apps, you have everything else that's installed on this particular Surface Hub. And again, you have to go to the menu to see the end session button here at the bottom. So don't forget the end session. The main thing about these hubs is just walk up to them and touch them, right? So if you go back to your training from your first smartphone or the training you got when you first got Facebook, use all of it. Just touch it, feel it. If you think something should do something, try it. There's really nothing that you can do to it unless you ram one of these against the wall or the glass. You can't break it. So I'm just going to start a couple things here real quick, just to talk some. So with the hub, you can have multiple apps running at the same time. So you can go to the start menu, you can start, this is just Edge Internet Explorer. This is the whiteboard app. I can see them both side by side. If I want to focus more on the website, I just drag that to the side. If I want to go back to something that I had open, there's a button at the bottom here that looks like a little screen that flips back and forth. That will open your open apps, and you can either switch to one or the other. You can make this so it's, you know, kind of a smaller, bigger, or you can completely get rid of it. You'll notice that on the top of these screens here, there's one button, looks like a little scissor. That's your copy content button. It's a very cool one. We'll talk about it in more detail. The other one is your full screen. So if you have something that you want to see just completely on the screen, it just clears everything out and it puts in there. What happens, it gets rid of your buttons, right? So how do you get back to your start menu? And when you just rub your finger out, starting on the outside of the screen going down, it brings in this edge again. And there's buttons on that side to copy content and exit full screen. There's also a button at the bottom here to exit full screen. When you touch on something that requires text, the keyboard should show automatically. The keyboard, you can slide it out of the way just by touching it. You have your symbols and digits. This is these arrows. So if you want to just go arrow left, arrow right. If you want to change it to handwriting recognition, so if you actually have a good handwriting, I don't, you can write and it will recognize decent handwriting. I'm not going to demo that. 'Cause Any questions so far?
How do you close one of those?
So
I see how you minimize it, how do you?
Yeah, so to close it, you go back to your app view, so the button that shows you all the apps, and there's a little X button there that you can close the app. So one of the features that we can do with this Surface Hub here specifically, this one is FPD03. I forgot to mention that. On the bottom left of every one of these, there's their name. So FPD01, I can't see it from here, 2, and this one is 3. So 3 is currently set up to allow us to do remote desktop. So you can actually remote into your desk from here and use all the apps that you normally do, that you have on your computer from a hub. So on the start menu, go to all apps, and you scroll to remote desktop. In the remote desktop app, on the right hand side you can add a desktop. So you click on add, desktop PC, and I'm not going to use the handwriting. I need to know my computer name.
And it's on that sticker on the face of it, right?
It should be, yes. Type in your computer name and hit enter. It gets added to the corner. All this is on your booklet in detail. To log in, just touch the PC, and this is your level 2 username and password. You're gonna get a message to accept the certificate. You really don't have an option, you accept the certificate. And this is your desktop. So now you gotta log in again. And you'll notice that now the keyboard doesn't show automatically, right? There's a button on the top here with, kind of looks like a keyboard. Click on that. Same thing. Username and password. And you'll be able to control your computer using touch. So it is a little bit different than a mouse, but the best thing you can do is come up to one of these, log in, try it, see how it behaves. You can, touch different elements, move them around, get the keyboard, start apps, close apps, whatever it is, that is your desktop. But so far, only on number 3. Yeah?
Do we need our Duo device to do that?
No, not yet. Cool. I recommend the desktop if you're doing any kind of PDF editing, anything that is kind of beyond just the collaboration, video conference kind of thing. We will be evolving and getting more apps for the Surface Hubs, but right now the main one is PDF editing works best when you're doing remote desktop instead of locally. Again, when you're in the remote desktop section, you have the full screen. Next to the keyboard button here on the top, there is a 3 little dots, and that brings this menu on the side here that you can exit full screen, disconnect, use your finger or mouse, try this stuff. But when you exit full screen, basically your desktop is any other app that is on the Surface Hub. So now you can see your desktop with any other apps that we had in here. So you can do side by side. You can do the copy content, anything that's on the screen you can get.
I have a question. Can you show us, like, if we do like a little sketch or write notes, how to save that someplace?
So when you're on remote desktop, it's your desktop. You're gonna save it to your drive and all, and it is what it is. When we get to the whiteboard section, I will.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
It's coming up.
Any questions on the remote desktop part? Cool. The other thing that you can do with these things is video conferencing. So we're gonna put one of them at the AEC trailer, and we're gonna be able to video call between us and them. When you walk up to them, to the hubs, I mean, if they're on the start screen, you see that there's a call button. You can start it that way. If you're already in a session, it's called Teams. So Microsoft Teams and Skype for Business are kind of the 2 parallel apps. On the hubs, we have Teams. So when you're already in it, click on Teams, and that will start the video conferencing app, which is Microsoft Teams. You see that you have this bar that showed up on the right-hand side, and you have the Meet Now button. Meet Now will allow you to invite another board for this call. So the way that we have this set up is that each board can call one another, but we can't call people, right? So from FPD03, if I want to call the trailer, I'm going to call AEC01. If I want to call that screen, FPD02, if I'm going to call this screen, it's FPD01. And the name of the screen is on the bottom left-hand side. So under the invite someone, I just start typing AEC. You see that it fills up the rest of the name for me. You touch that, and if you want to have more, if you want to have a second board, a third board on the call, you can add it here. If you're ready to start, you just click Start Meeting. So this is ringing now on the AEC side. Over there, you see an accept call. Once it's accepted, the video will show up. Well, thanks, Kelly. Hello, come back. So when you're in a call, their video shows up. If you had other callers in here, they would show up here also. Your video preview shows in the bottom. You have the option of, when you touch the side, you see this little menu here. So you can mute your microphone, you can mute your camera, or you can present content. When you're presenting content, this orange border shows around your screen. So basically whatever we have here, they have there. So they're seeing what you see. They can't do anything with it. So it's just a presentation mode. But they can't interact with it.
Can you write on the board now and they would see you writing on the board on top of this,
Yes.
for example?
So they can see everything that we
Okay.
see. If we had the whiteboard app and we started that, they would see it. They wouldn't be able to interact with it
Okay.
this way.
But could you highlight like the text on this website, for example?
Potentially. I'll show you how to do
Okay.
that. It's not direct like this, so I can't just grab the pen and write on it.
Yeah,
but
that's
there
what I
is a way to
meant,
do
yeah,
it.
so you can't do that.
Not
Okay.
right here,
Okay.
but there, it's coming.
Can you say again what the orange is again? Somehow missed that. What's
The orange border shows that we are sharing content.
Oh, okay, alright.
And that's this little button here, so it changes from the arrow, like to
Okay.
send the content over, to the X. So
Okay.
now I can close and stop sharing the content. If I don't care about the content and all I wanna do is have a call, there's a little screen button here that brings this to full screen. So there's Kelly occupying the whole screen. Hey!
Where's
How you
the
doing?
speaker for that?
Speakers are in the back.
Okay.
So in the back of it, there's a circle here where the computer is, and those are the
Okay.
speakers. Volume is in the bottom.
I guess I just wonder, like, can someone, like, if he talks and he's standing where he's at, they can hear this whole room? How far can they
The microphone
hear?
is very sensitive.
It's
Yeah,
sensitive, okay.
yeah.
So what would be the distance you would say?
I don't have the exact for you. I
Okay.
know that
About?
when we were testing it, I had a screen in here, and Brendan was in his office talking, and I could hear him through the hub talking in his office. So the microphone is sensitive.
I can hear you clearly right now, Angie, so.
Oh, when you say sensitive, you're meaning sensitive like it can hear a lot.
It
not,
hears a lot.
Not the reverse, not like it can't hear you. It can actually hear you.
It hears,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it picks up everything.
Okay.
Luis, is this our, obviously it's not at AEC, when does it go over?
So there are, I'm hoping it in the next week or two. There's some big glitches that we're working with Microsoft on right now, that as soon as they get resolved, we're gonna move one over there.
So Louise, when we're doing this sharing of screen, right now they're not, like Kelly wouldn't be able to write and we would see her writing.
Not
By sharing
yet.
our screen, okay.
When I get to the whiteboard app, that's where all the magic happens. We save the best for the end. You have the option of, so to exit full screen, it's the same thing with every app, you know, you just kinda touch it, and it shows up the bar again. In this case here, it's the, you know, the buttons are a little bit different, that's why I say just touch these things. You know, in this case, rub it top to bottom, whatever feels like it should work, try it, because it might. And then to end the call, bye Kelly.
Bye.
You just hit the big red button that hangs up, and you're not connected anymore. The important thing though, to get this board ready for the next person, is to hit the end session. So I'm not gonna do it now, because it takes a couple of minutes, but ending session would clear all this website stuff, the call that we made, and it would get ready for the next person. Any questions for that?
Louise? conversely, if we forget to press the end session, it's on forever, right? It doesn't time out or shut down automatically.
Right, so, the setting that we have these on right now is to never time out. So if you do have a board that you set it up and you're working on and you happen to walk away for a few hours, you come back, it's still gonna be there. That's good and bad, right? It can be the next day or the next week, your stuff is still gonna be here unless you click on end session. The next feature, unfortunately, is not ready yet. Sparty just wanted to make an appearance on the booklet. But you will be able to invite these boards to a Skype call. So from your desktop, you can make a Skype meeting. You will be able to invite the board to it and then attend the meeting from your desk via video conference to one of these boards. So the idea is that in theory, you could sit at your desk, call the AEC board, and be on a meeting with them, or any of these other boards. But that's coming.
Quick question, Liz. If we're invited to a meeting, in the traditional way, like through Blue Jeans, are we able to, if we need to do that in the space, we need to go remote desktop and do it?
So that becomes a little bit trickier because, so Blue Jeans is not supported yet on these, right? And when you remote desktop, you're using your computer,
Yeah.
so your camera is gonna be in your office, and your microphone is gonna be in your office. So I haven't found a good way to do that yet. But I know that it's possible and there are integrations available. We're just working with both ITS and HITS to get that stuff turned on.
Yeah, it's taken me two, telecommuting days to realize that the reason I can't get music to play through my laptop at home is because it's playing on my computer here.
It's playing here, that's awesome.
No, not so much.
So the next is the whiteboard app. So this is where you can write, you can share screens, you can do all kinds of stuff with it. Again, from the standby screen, it's the middle button, it just says whiteboard. From the start menu, it's the same thing, the whiteboard. I'm gonna get rid of that. Really gonna get rid of that.
Use great tools to capture their ideas. Microsoft Whiteboard is an endless canvas for people who work
That's a
together
demo.
in person.
Yeah, so go to the all the apps in the bottom here, the second button in the middle. Yep. And then just close that.
Louise, are you out of?
Just one.
Yeah, let go of your finger.
There are so many great.
There you go.
Are you still in remote desktop right now?
No.
Can you bring the whiteboard up when you're in remote?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's just another app, right? So it works like that.
So can you copy and send that, like whatever you have on that whiteboard to like your email?
Yes, you can. So on the whiteboard, when you just start the app and you walk up to it, you can just start writing whatever. My handwriting is not gonna show up on the screen, so I'm not gonna write on it. But the pen's in the bottom, select the color, you touch the pen, either with your finger or the pen, you can select how thick they are, you can change the color, you have some options there at the bottom. On the top of the screen, you see that there's a little torso with a plus sign to it. This is where you share the board with somebody. The next one, sign in. We sign into the board using our level 1 account, and when we do, you save the content of the board to the cloud automatically. And all of the boards you worked on historically are also saved under your account. So if you're just doing a whiteboard inside the room, you don't have to sign in if you don't want to. But if you want to invite somebody, or if you want to save your board, you do need to log in. And the login is your umich.edu email, so no MED, just level 1. Your unique name at umich.edu, and then your level 1 password. And because we're using level 1, it's gonna require dual. So when you do this, bring your device, whatever you get your dual authentication on, just make sure it's available.
that fancy, you just do it right from your watch.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Show off.
While that's doing its thing, does this post need to sit here, or can it go against the wall over there? What is the, because it looks like it's just connected to the hub through this, right?
No, that's actually recording our session so we can play later.
Okay, because I see you stepping over that cord, and
Yeah,
so this has to sit in the middle of the room.
for now, yeah.
During our
Okay.
session,
It's only
so-
for this education session.
Okay, that's what I mean.
Normally, that will not even be in the room.
Okay.
It's just an accessory that I'll talk about before we leave.
Okay.
That if you wanted to use it, it's available to you. Today, as we were trying to position everything, that was the best cord we had.
I see.
So you're good. It's provided a nice trip hazard for us.
Yeah. I'm worried about you, Reese, from sitting here.
Normally, that won't be in here and in your way at all.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
So after you log in, it says you're all set. Remember to end session, so it just reminds you, and it's good to go. So when you sign in, the board that you have on is saved to the cloud automatically. So this is already in there. You'll see your name on it, and you'll see this button here change from a question mark to an arrow. This is where you see all the past boards that you've worked on. In this list, you have a snapshot of what the board is. You have the date of when it was edited. If you renamed the board, it's going to be in here too. And you'll notice that some of them have this blue icon on them. The ones that have the blue icon are boards that are shared. So those are boards that either I invited somebody to, or that they invited me to them. So you can open any of them. Let's open the one that takes the longest. And this is what the board looked like the last time it was used. So one thing that you notice about these boards is that there's no page, there's no flip. It's just one big space, right? So when you zoom in, or zoom out, I should say, just pinch your fingers and bring them in. So this brings all the content visible. But if I just want to work on that little piece right there, I can just zoom in all the way to that, right? And now, because this board is shared with other people, they can be working on the board over here, and I can't see it. But it is being updated, right? So that's kind of something to keep in mind. If you're sharing a board with somebody and they say, can you see this on the corner? No, I can't. It's probably because you're zoomed in too much and they are writing on a place that you can't see on the screen. But all you gotta do is just zoom out and move around and you will be able to see it.
And for right now, it's just these 3 hubs, right, or 4 hubs?
Yes, so the Whiteboard app is actually available on iOS. It's available on a web browser, and it's available on your desktop that is not on MCIT network.
Key asterisk on that one.
You had me.
But you can go to whiteboard.microsoft.com on the HITS desktops and use the web app. It's not as nice, but they are working on it. It's a new product that they are evolving and growing. But you can log into it with your Level 1 account from anywhere and use the board, see your boards, interact. They'll be able to see you. You'll be able to see them work-wise. I mean, like what you're doing, right? They won't be able to see you unless you call.
So there's no way that if I'm using this hub, somebody else is using a different hub, we're both looking at the same whiteboard, that when I move my whiteboard, theirs moves as well?
Not when you move the canvas, right? So if you, the view that you choose on this board is your view.
Okay.
Their view is different, right? So you do have to, kind of be talking back and forth. But remember that because you can use any app together, you're probably going to be on a call when you're sharing the board, or you could be on a call while you're sharing the board. So then you're sharing video, audio, and what you're writing, and it will show up on both sides.
So then here's a crazy question for you. Since you just did you had your desktop, your remote desktop up, you were on video with Kelly, and I could share my screen with her. She couldn't write on it. Can we also have a whiteboard up that she is able to write on?
So when you are on the whiteboard app and you share it with somebody,
Yeah.
they can write on it,
Okay.
right? So you would call into the meeting, open the whiteboard and share it.
Okay.
They open the same whiteboard, you can both write, you can both view each other.
Okay.
What I did before was send content. Then I'm just presenting whatever is here. Everybody can see it, but nobody can do anything with it.
So you can't do both?
No,
Okay.
not yet.
Yeah, so I can't share my SketchUp file from my remote desktop to her as well as allow her to mark up a whiteboard, not yet.
So you can, but you wouldn't be able to see it. You wouldn't be able to see it, they would, the far
Okay.
end would,
Okay.
right? So the far end can be on the whiteboard
Yep.
and video.
Yep,
And, you know, you can be on something else, but
okay,
the different scenarios are like so many,
Yeah.
right? So come in here, try it, play it. If you find something that's not in here, let me know, you know, maybe it could help somebody else.
But you can you use the program, GoTo or one of those other ones where you're sharing drawings and one person has control? You can do that.
What do you mean go to, like?
There's a GoTo meeting and I forget what the other type
Right,
is.
so the Surface Hubs have a slimmed down version of Windows 10. So, Blue Jeans, GoToMeeting, you know, these other apps, they don't work on them yet.
Oh,
Next year, there's more releases. I think they're working on Cisco WebEx, and there's more coming, but right now you can't. You're limited to what they have right here. On the whiteboard app though, there's some nice little things in the bottom here. So one is this ruler, right? So if you need to, you know, make any kind of straight line, angled line, whatever it is, you can use the ruler. Let me make it a little bit thicker to kind of, you know, write it. You can switch. You can move this ruler around with 2 fingers, and it shows the angle in the middle here that you're at. If you want to be really precise, you separate your fingers, and that gives you, you know, like 1, 2 degrees at a time. And you can draw lines and all kinds of things. It's good to trace over a floor plan. I'll show you that in a little bit, so you can do some different scenarios. On the right-hand side here, you have a menu, and in the menu you have ink to shape, ink to table. So these 2 things are kind of nice with drawing. So if I just draw a square or a rectangle or a circle, I mean they're sloppy, right? But when you turn on ink to shape, and I draw a square, and I draw a rectangle, triangle, thank you. And it didn't work.
Thought something was supposed to happen.
Me too. Cool, we'll erase that part, don't worry. But when it works, it actually smooths the lines, makes the circle look rounder and the square look better. I should have put some more thought into it, but 03 is set up to be like, to receive all the patches and updates immediately. The others are not, so in hindsight, maybe I should have used another board, but you know, it was working yesterday. Another thing that you can do, let's see if it works. Ink to table. Nope, never mind. In the bottom of the board, you see a plus sign there, and you see another menu that comes up. So you can insert a bunch of stuff, sticky notes, images, lists. There's this template preview here, and these are some pre-made boards that you can fill in a meeting if you find that helpful. So project milestones, that one's for you, Dave. You click it in, it shows up very, very tiny, but you can touch it. Notice that I had to play around with the touch to make sure the whole thing is selected. I'm gonna bring this down, and then I can make it so it's bigger for me to actually work on. And then the template has different sticky notes. It has things that you can add to it. So I can add a note here. I can add a note there. And depending on the kind of meeting that you're running, some of these templates are very helpful. And again, they're coming out with new ones all the time. I showed you the whiteboard, or the my whiteboard thing. One thing I didn't do is show you the roster. So when you have a board that is shared, and you have the icon that's a little bit different here with the little people, and you touch on it, you can see who you have the board shared with. You can change if they can edit or read only, you can delete them, you can add other people, you can
So how do you
manage that way.
add someone? Can you show us how to add someone?
Sure.
Are we coming up?
Next page.
Yes.
What is it?
Table and use the shape for working with the jobs.
Huh?
It's the table and use the shape for working with the draw with your fingers at the pen. I don't know. Just. Okay, well, on this board it does.
Yeah, it's the patching thing, right? So that one is kinda blocked up.
And what's happening is as Microsoft is pushing out updates to this whiteboard, it's breaking the abilities for these screens to connect with each other. And so at Louise, we've got context, we're working directly with Microsoft to show them what's going on with these patches they're pushing out. So it's like the domino effect of what's kept us from giving AEC a board is the basic stuff we wanted to do around sharing and connecting whiteboards. Microsoft keeps breaking it. So, and that's just my way of phrasing, and I know it's probably more complicated than that, but this is the perfect example of an update goes out, it works yesterday, and then today it doesn't do it. So we're just trying to manage and work around those things, expose you guys to how to use them, but at the end of the day, you can always accomplish what you're trying to do another way, even if part of these templates or this ink to shape isn't working quite right.
Right, yeah. They are releasing new features so fast that sometimes you get 3 updates in a week. And it's good and bad. But Bill, to add somebody to a board, there's the blue icon or the plus on the side. You touch that. I'm gonna change it to the keyboard so I can type. And you can enter somebody's unique name. What the latest patch did is stop this list from populating. So I can't complete the share, but when you start by typing a first name, a last name, or a unique name, this list will get populated with everybody that's in the directory at umich.edu. You touch, and it gets shared with them. That's all you have to do. But you can only share it with somebody that has an umich.edu email address right now. It's gonna be opened up, but right now it's only umich.edu. This is a big feature that stopped us from sending it to AEC.
So when you were showing us the share, it had Kate and Brendan's name in there, but they're not sharing? Or
So
they are?
that
'Cause-
was an old board that was shared previously. So before they sent that feature to break our sharing,
So it technically wouldn't be there for anybody
No.
that logged in, okay.
right, it's just
Okay.
because I had a board that was already shared.
I
So
didn't know if you had to erase it or something, okay.
yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So far, so good? I know it's a lot, but everything is in the book. Now, with the whiteboard, you can basically copy and paste anything into it. If you see it on the screen, you can do a screenshot and then paste it onto the board, and you can make that be a part of the whiteboard, so it's shared, it's saved. You can then write on top of it, you can highlight. That's when you can use the pen and really get some more features into it. So, just to make it extra complicated, instead of just doing a picture, I'm gonna try to bring a file from box.com, right? So, let me just clear this board first. So I'm gonna go to my boards, create a new board. So that's a blank canvas. I'm gonna go to the start menu, go to box.com. And I'm gonna look for some kind of PDF floor plan that I have in here. Login is the same that you do from your desk to box.com, so it's just your unique name and your level 1. again with the dual because of level 1. And I don't know, let's go with this guy. Brighton owner review. It might be big. Review documents. And let me select this very first one. So, the way that we got it to work is kind of a roundabout way, but it worked yesterday. So when you select the file and you have the 3 little dot button, you're gonna have a download option. So you touch download. In the bottom of the screen is gonna ask you, what do you wanna do with this? We're gonna save it. When the download is done, we're gonna choose open. And this may or may not show up depending on what's installed on the hub, but you're always going to choose Microsoft Edge. When the file opens up, so this is just a PDF in
That was quick.
in Microsoft Edge. Yeah, thank you. That was not rehearsed even. And let's see that we wanna grab some kind of section of this floor plan. And notice that when I'm zooming in, at first it looks blurry, but then it updates, right? So it does this on your desktop also. I think it's just a lot faster than here. But the bigger the image and the more into it you are, the better it's gonna look on the board, right? So just make it big, zoom in, and it's gonna get to a point where you can't, and that's perfect. That's exactly where you need it to be. If the section that you wanna add on the board is visible here, just do the screenshot straight from here. If you need more room, feel free to maneuver around, get it to the way you want, wait for it to update, get the lines sharp, and you're good to go. Now to add this to the board, it's just here. So there's a little scissor thing on the top. It's on the top of every screen. When you touch that scissor, it takes a screenshot of your current window and it opens up the whiteboard app automatically. So what it's asking me now is clip all or select a region. So if I want the entire window that I copied added to my whiteboard, I just say clip all. If I just want, I don't know, let's pick something that's not so boring, just this hallway here. You just draw with your finger, let go, and when you let go, it adds to the board. Now remember, the board is huge, right? Looks like nothing happened, but it's right there. So let me get out of the finger mode. And then as you zoom in, so there it is, right?
Get a little grid too. Oh,
So everything that was on the PDF, it's in here. So this is an object, right? So you can touch it, you can move it around, you can resize it, you can do copy. Now let me do paste over here. So now I have 2 of these guys side by side. What you're gonna do with it depends on your situation, right? If you're working with furniture, you wanna create some different options, get the background ready, make a couple copies, right over it. If you want to lock one of these down so it's part of the background and you can easier, you know, more, a little easier to interact with, you can just lock it. That ruler that I showed earlier, so if you want to see if, you know, like this room, like whatever, right?
Oh,
Get rid of that.
It snapped your square, I think.
Yep.
I think it snapped your little square at your little.
Oh, it started to work? That's awesome. Yeah, I think you're right, I noticed something. So the lines that I wrote here is an object also, so I can move that around, right? If this wasn't square, I could see if, you know, can I move this room over here? So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with it, it just depends on what you need. So come up, touch them, try them, use them.
So right now, if you needed to go back to your main screen and clip another spot, show me how I would do that.
So you go back to
Go
your
back
apps
to the
that are
main app.
open.
Mm-hmm.
That's your box file.
Okay.
And you can just do the exact same thing. So you
Okay.
can go to a different page, zoom in, full screen, copy, paste, you're good to go. Pictures, floor plans, anything that shows on the board, you can copy and paste into a whiteboard. Now, when you copy and paste something that is not huge or complex, you can actually convert the drawing to lines. So if you want to delete a wall, add a wall, write on it, whatever it is, this should work. There's a magic wand button here, and when you touch on that, it converts the PDF into actual lines. So the difference is that this guy, I can only move the whole thing. This here, if I want to add it, you know, that room name, I can. If I want to take that out, I can. If I want to get rid of that, I can. Right, so it's from this to that, so it's editable.
What did you hit again to do that?
So on the top, let me unlock this one.
Magic wand.
There's a magic wand. So let me paste it again. So it's literally just a little magic wand, and when you touch it, it goes through and it converts the lines. Now, if you get a whole floor plan, this thing is gonna spin for like 60 seconds and not do anything. So it can't be extremely complex drawings, but small sections, rooms, stuff like that you can.
Is there a way to change settings so it's not as cartoonish?
So depends on the PDF, and it depends on how your Zoom works. So I've got it to where you could actually read the text, but I don't remember exactly what I did or what file it was. But it has to do with the Zoom.
Okay.
So if you copy, you want to zoom in, zoom out, play with it, and it's possible. We've done it.
So at this point, you can't change the line weight of that, for example.
You can't go back to the view it was before.
So not on this, but if you have a copy, you can. Now, if that was the last thing I did, you have the undo button at the bottom.
But that wall that you erased right there, how do we record that? Is that, oh, put it back, or get rid of it again, please. So now if I want to save that, say, okay, this is what the client wants.
So I'm logged into the board, so
Mhm.
this is already saved. Right, so this board now is part of my list of boards, and it's always gonna be here until I delete it. If I want to share this with somebody, I would go to our little add, enter a unique name, the list will fill up eventually, you select it, and they would get an email that you share the board with them. If they're on a whiteboard app, they go to the My Whiteboards screen, and they will actually see the board that you shared with them with a little pop-up that says you've been invited. So when that stuff starts working again, we'll update this guide and make sure that we share it with you guys.
Otherwise, we can just click the screen and save it as a JPEG, PDF, whatever.
You can. So to send this board to somebody, there's the little menu over here again, and you have export. Export gives you two options, PNG and high quality SVG. PNG is okay, you'll be able to see it. You may not be able to read some stuff, but it's decent. SVG is the perfect quality of the board, but you need to have something like Photoshop to open it. So not everybody can open SVG, we can. But if you send an SVG to somebody, chances are they're not going to be able to open it. But a PNG, yes, everybody can.
Well, if you share it with somebody and they work on it, I don't know, a day later, and you're not in there, will you get an update that they made changes to your board? Or-
I don't think you get an update right now, but as soon as you get into the board, you know, it's all the changes are there, right? So you don't have to be online to work on the board when it's shared.
So let me make one comment, as I know we're a couple minutes to the end, and some of us might have meetings bookended. So because this was our first round of the class, we don't know how many questions, we don't know how fast to get through the content was, but we had our scavenger hunt activity that we want everybody to do, okay? It doesn't have to be done now, doesn't have to be done after this meeting, but over the next week or two, 3 even, as you have a few minutes to come down here and the room's not in use, this stuff is all pretty straightforward and follows along with what Louise has done. So I just would ask that you guys go through, do these different hands-on activities, and then initial, and then get the sheets to me, okay? And I don't mean to cut you off, but if somebody is able to stick around and wants to do their scavenger hunt, we'll be around to do that, okay? But I just wanted to jump in and mention that as the clock is winding down. And then Louise, I think, did you have, even in the next couple of minutes, was there anything you haven't covered that you knew you really wanted to cover?
No, I think the big ones are covered. You can connect a laptop to this or a device to it and use it just like a presentation device. We have some cables in the middle here, some adapters. And if your laptop allows you to do wireless presentation, Windows key K on your laptop will transmit to these guys wirelessly. So something else to try.
Is the Departmental laptops have that?
Any Windows laptop should have, whether it's left it on or not. I have not personally tested it.
And what's that called again?
The Windows key and K. So that turns on the Miracast Connect.
Windows.
It's in here, Bill.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because I didn't know what it was either, so I was looking.
Thank you. But that's it.
So the last couple pages, the one main thing that I just want to show you guys, there is no conference call capability in here. This is our Evoco conference phone, okay? It hangs just through that door and on the left. It's on a little charger, so it'll always be ready to work. The instructions are in the booklet, but basically you turn it on, the power button, you hit the Bluetooth, you connect to it via your Android or iOS, your Apple device. Once you do, someone can call you, you can call them, and this thing just acts as a really nice speakerphone that can pick up your meeting as everyone's talking. It's worked great so far. You can, I believe, connect up to 5 people via your cell phone. So whether you call 5 people and just continue to add them to the call, or someone calls you and you answer it and add them, and the instructions are all pictured in there, you can connect them all and everyone can hear each other as well as whatever's going on in the room. So I know Bajita used this week in a meeting and it worked fantastic. So this thing is always available and it's just hanging on the charger in the other room, okay? So with that, thank you guys. And if you
keep the pens?
Well, you have to leave the pens because those are a part of the Goodwill in the Mill activity. However, they will be available in here, and once we're done with the education, you can come grab one. If you guys want it and you have time and you want to do your scavenger hunt stuff now, that's great. You know, that's wonderful. You can do that. If you want to come back when you have a few free minutes, that's fine as well. Okay. So I appreciate your time and attention. We're going to continue to bring up updates to the mill at our standing monthly huddle. So if there are things that we want to share and deploy, we can do that with all of you guys. Okay. All right. Thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you, Louise.
Well done.